in addition to what you shared. Click this. So spammers are a revenue stream for me. And so Wayne sent me that message and I'm like, hey, there's a better way. You got to appreciate the hustle. And I'm a former spammer, you know, so I learned the hard way. Doing something and getting to the end of the day and you're like, there's got to be a better way. So what I want to do is I'll just kind of tell you my story and why I'm here today speaking to you. And I want to give you actionable steps that you can take away, you can apply to your business. And that will revolve mostly around tactics because strategies take a little bit more time. Shin Tzu has a great quote from Art of War. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. Strategy without tactics is the longest way to victory. So I learned that throughout, and I'm still learning that today. There's been several iterations throughout my business. I got into B2B sales when I was homeless, living in my car. And if I cut out for some reason, because I have several bars, I can switch rather quickly. So just let me know and I could go into the other room. So I started in B2B sales. I was homeless living in my car. I grew up just in a very, I didn't think I had much potential. A really critical environment. I don't say that because I felt I was a victim. I'm just telling you how it was. And so I had a job and I lost my job and I was ashamed to tell anybody in my family. And so I went through all my savings and pretty soon I was homeless. I was living in my stinking car in Northern California and I was looking for job after job after job. I finally got this job and it was selling advertising. For several months, I was homeless, living in my car. It was 119 out of 119 salespeople. Last. Zero zip nada sales. Ken Upton, my boss, who soon became my mentor because of the conversation I'm about to discuss with you, he had me over for dinner. He didn't know I was homeless. So I washed up in the gas station and went over his house. Afterward, he pulled me into a den. And if anyone's been in Northern California, it's pretty cool. I mean, you can have fires in a fireplace during the summer there. And he pulled me into his den and I can remember it was like yesterday. He had his kind of like his mentor chair and I was sitting on the couch over here and there was a table between us. And he said, Chaz. I'm like, yes. He goes, are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? And I was totally clueless. I said, he goes, I know you're not making any money. You don't have any sales. He goes, do you want to change that? And these three words changed my life. He said, you can be. Now he followed that by the top salesperson in the company, but just someone telling me and speaking into my life, you can be, it's like, wow, I can be. And then he said, but, don't you hate those big butts with one T? He said, but you got to follow the system. You got to follow the process. We spent a lot of time developing it and it's proven. And so at that point in time in my life, I was like, oh, system and process, follow the system and process. So long story short, 45 days later, I wasn't the top salesperson in the company, but I was the number 3. And I moved out of my place with automatic windows. So back then, can everyone see my board okay? Back then, and this is the typical environment, this is a pond with a lot of people fishing after the same people. And in sales, typically that's what you're doing. You're making the calls, you're taking them through the sales process. And it's difficult, it's hard. So during the course of the next 25 years, I worked in 9 different, vastly different industries. And the reason why that's important is, have you ever been with someone who's been in one industry for such a long time, and then you try to get them to change, and what do they say? Anybody?
I have everybody muted.
I can't. I'm trying to relive. It's like we've always done it that way. You get a group think. Most of the inventions are from someone who left one industry and went into another. Now, I didn't plan this in my mind, but it helped me think outside the box. So I was always looking for doing a newsletter in the 90s or doing direct mail and all these different things because I didn't like doing stinking cold calls. And I don't think I've done a cold call in I don't know how many years now. So in my mind, I didn't realize it, but I was developing a marketing strategy. So fast forward to December 2016, I started my business. It was pretty much sales, about reducing your sales cycle, increasing your closing percentage. I use onboarding percentage because now my belief is it's about serving, not selling. It's about onboarding, not closing. But so everybody understands, increasing your closing percentage, developing rock solid loyalty that leads to upsells and cross sells. But I learned quickly that I paid someone a lot of money to do Facebook ads, and that wasn't working very well. And I learned very quickly that my clients' number one need was filling the top of their funnel or filling their pipeline, however you want to describe that. And so several years back, I had developed a process with LinkedIn messages to pretty much eliminate cold calls for the sales reps. I was a national sales manager. And so I started to develop on my LinkedIn strategy. It's been 17,000 hours in the making now. And so what I did is I combined that with my sales process in one congruent ideology. And there's been many iterations from messaging, like Wayne was talking about, back in 2016, 2017, we had a very simple process based on law of reciprocity with a survey. But you got to constantly change. One of the most important lessons is I've learned in business is you got to continue to change because what worked yesterday doesn't necessarily work today. And LinkedIn, you can't tie yourself just to one platform. And I have a more holistic approach. There's been several iterations, Wayne, since we talked. So pretty much what I've done is this is, if you do these are all tactics, doing messages here, marker's not working. And typically on LinkedIn, this is what everyone does. They send messages, they're pitching, they're selling. And people don't care about you, they care about themselves, right? They care about the outcome that we provide. And so reaching people, one of the things, and Wayne, we discussed this when you're a client, is reaching people based on their motivators and their behaviors, not yours. When you do that, they're open. And my clients, when they were using this, we call this emotional intelligence. And when you throw in a little psychology, it's pretty simple process. It's a skill set to learn where you can easily take someone from a conversation, 3 things in direct messages, okay? They engage with you. That gives you permission to talk with them. You uncover a need and you schedule a meeting. Wayne sent me a template message and he's on LinkedIn. He's using a template message because what? He's trying to get people to want to be interested in what he has to offer. And so it was easy for me. I was joking before, but I was being serious. Spammers are a revenue stream for me, as long as they have humility, okay? And Wayne did. I sent him a personal video message. We scheduled a meeting and he became my client. So they engage, you uncover a need, and you schedule a meeting. So emotional intelligence, and just so you know, you guys, everyone here, LinkedIn is really great as a platform. It gives you all the information. If you go to their activity, if you go to their profile, you can use that information to engage in a conversation. And here's a simple way to do that for everyone. Here's a takeaway that you can apply. And raise your hand. Has everyone read this really heavy book? Deep, but it's kind of heavy too. Evolutionary Psychology. Anybody? Okay. So when you use emotional intelligence with human psychology, if you use an assumptive statement with a question, you can get people to engage. Okay. And on LinkedIn, there's 3 simple, or there's one major way broken down into 3 different ways that you can engage with people. And that's notifications, birthdays, anniversaries, job changes. It's a simple way for you to communicate. Most people don't understand how to do this and how powerful it is. And this is a tactic that you can use and you can apply to your business. If you're connected with people in your target market, which you should be, and you get a notification that Bob just is his 50th anniversary at his business, that he's in your target market, just reach out. Congratulations. Then an assumptive statement and an open-ended question. So congratulations on 5 years. Hope you crush it in year 6. What's your biggest takeaway? I see a lot of changes in businesses. What's your biggest takeaway from the last year in business? People are very responsive to that, and you engage in conversation. Okay, so that's a tactic. All right. Now I went from that to 5 pillars to scale your business on LinkedIn to where I am today, and it's all about positioning, leverage, and conversion. That's it. I want to make it real simple. So positioning, leverage, and conversion. The idea right now is we're all fishing around this pond. All of our in here, and it's very crowded. And a lot of times, if people don't see you as an authority, that's what marketing does. They don't have confidence in you. It's just pick and choose. Does anyone know, raise your hand if you know what Profinder is on LinkedIn. Okay. It's a place where you put in, like, I provide this services, and then it's kind of like Upwork or something where everyone's going after it. You're not an authority, and it's just people basically just getting a price for something like this. I mean, and people spend a lot of time doing that. So what you want to do is you want to go over here. So it's you in the pond by yourself with people in your target market. So that's what I want to talk about today. How to get here without cold calls, right? It's pretty cool, actually. And so everyone knows Girl Scouts, right? We're here, everyone's here in the United States. So Girl Scout, a 12-year-old Girl Scout, let me bring this lesson home to you all so you can understand it about positioning and leverage. 12-year-old Girl Scout. Typically, Girl Scouts will go in front of a Walmart. They'll go on the street corner where there's heavy traffic, right? Heavy traffic. Not necessarily people in her target market. This girl, 12 years old, went in front of a cannabis dispensary. So there's a good chance people came out there they're hungry, not for health food, or they would be hungry soon. 117 boxes of Girl Scout cookies sold in 2 hours. All right. Positioning and leverage, right? 12-year-old Girl Scout. Okay. So let me flip this around here. So this is a road. I'm working on my artwork, by the way. This is a road with your clients over here where they need to get to you where you are positioned with leverage so that they go into the sales process. A lot of businesses, they'll have marketing down, but they don't have the sales process, or they have the sales process, but not marketing. Most businesses don't have either down very well. I had a client who paid $5,000 a month for content marketing. And they told him, they said, it'll take about 6 months to start getting, some leads, and about 12 months later, then, the faucet's going to be open. What happened is they went through the road, they got here, and there wasn't a handoff into the salespeople. So he got one lead because they went to a place, but he didn't understand. And that's because, like, if I would draw like a canyon here, it'd be the canyon of doom. If you don't have a handoff from lead, or if you're not handing it off to someone, if it's you, it's what do you say when you have a lead, when you have the first conversation, what is it like? There's 4 essential things. And it's not about being pushy. It's about engaging them in a conversation based on their agenda, not yours. Most first conversations is about the salesperson's agenda. And people have their walls up. Anyone ever been to a retail store and a clerk walks up to you and says, "Can I help you?" Raise your hand. How many said, "Just looking"? Which is a lie. You just lied to that sales clerk, right? Why is that? Because we don't want to be sold. We have our walls up, right? So in order to lower your walls, imagine this. If the sales clerk, the same scenario, you're there, the sales clerk's walking up, you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm just looking." You're rehearsing what you're going to say. He or she walks up to you and says, "I'm sure you're here just looking," right? Assumptive statement. If you'd like to save 29%, that's typically what I can save all our customers that come in, I'll be right over there. Would you be more responsive to that? Right? So that's the whole idea, is to work with people based on their motivators, their behaviors. And so in marketing, this is the road. And as people are traveling down this road, you should be building leverage. This is leverage down there, okay? So you have content, you have events, you have comments, all these things that you do on social media. And if you have a social media presence, you will be left behind to those that are building their social media presence, okay? All the things that you do on social media will give you leverage. And comments are huge. I'll talk about that in a minute. If you comment on someone's post in an irritated way, people are going to go to your profile and you're never going to get that person as a client. Okay. So LinkedIn is a powerful place. Any platform is powerful if you're consistent with the right strategies and tactics. So as you're going down the road, you should be with content, events, comments, you should be getting leverage. Teeter-totters, and raise your hand if you don't know what a teeter-totter is. I'm sure everyone does here. Okay. You don't know what a teeter-totter is, Loretta? Okay. Well, it's like you got a fulcrum point, you got one person sitting on one side, and you go like this, back and forth, back and forth. Okay. I thought so. It's been a while since I've been on a teeter-totter too. That's typically the sales process. That fulcrum point, imagine that's your positioning. Okay. That's your positioning. And typically in the sales process, you're positioned right there in the middle or a little bit closer to you. If you move the fulcrum point closer to you, it's going to be pretty hard to lift the other person up, right? If they're in the middle, as long as they're pushing off the ground, in the teeter-totter example, in just life, in the sales process, you can continue to have a conversation, you can continue to move forward. But what you want to do is in the teeter-totter example is this is your prospect, this is you. You want to move the positioning over to them. Okay. Take the Girl Scout. She positioned herself right in front of a cannabis dispensary. Now, we don't have that type of positioning with that brand because Girl Scout cookies is a huge brand. And we don't have people that are influenced in that way that she did. However, we can come very close by positioning yourself in a way that you speak to your audience. What do people care about? They care about themselves. You have to know your top 2 to 3 problems that you solve, with outcomes. So LinkedIn profile, that's an example of positioning yourself. Hold on a second. Okay. So you should position yourself with your LinkedIn profile. So when they're getting leverage with content, events, comments, they're going to your profile. This is your positioning down here. And you're positioned in such a way that you meet their needs, just like that Girl Scout. So on my profile, I know that my prospects' number one need is filling their funnel. Qualified leads. Okay. I don't even like to use the word leads because typically it's target, market, contact, or decision maker. That's not a lead. That's targeted contact information. So yes, this is important, but see you as an authority told you about a problem they have. In our process, that's what happens most of the time before you have your very first meeting. So when you're positioned in a right way with leverage, that leads to conversions. Okay. Wayne had sent me a template, and I'm not sure, Wayne, if you went to my profile to look at my profile, what I did. Do you remember that? It's been some time ago.
I found
like
you.
8 months ago. Did you go to my profile? Do you remember?
Sure.
Is that part of the reason why you scheduled the meeting?
Yeah, after I read your profile. Yeah, and the video message.
Okay. So that's a perfect example. I send him a personal video message. He goes to my profile. It makes sense and it meets a need. Wayne is trying to what? He's trying to get qualified meetings of people who are interested in what he has to offer. So for me, and if you go to my profile, it's schedule qualified meetings daily and onboard new clients weekly. That's what my prospective clients care about, right? Who wants qualified meetings daily? And I'm not talking about meetings where it's just like, how many, tell you what, raise your hand if you ever had too many meetings each week with people who were trying to sell you, or the conversation went really nowhere and it's a waste of your time. Yep. Yeah. It's, I've had it happen before. Okay. So when you go through this process, they come on the road, the marketing road, they're getting confidence in you. They're starting to see you as an authority. On the road that they're getting to where they are, to where you are, you got to remove as much friction, as many obstacles as possible. Okay. And so one of the ways that, and this is one of the things, Wayne, I'm doing now that I wasn't doing, I was starting when you were my client, is guess which one of these, well, comments, content, and events takes you over here. Raise your hand if it's events. That's the right answer. LinkedIn has a great way for you to invite people in your target market to an event. And so if they're in your target market and they're going to your event and you can promote it, you can invite like 500 people a day. It's crazy. And you have this event platform that you could market to prior to the event and after the event. So that's where I'm taking my clients today, as far as having that. Now you got to build a skill set to be able to have a live conversation with people. But once you do that and you do that well, I believe you'll never have a problem having qualified prospective clients coming in, because you're connecting with your target market. You're speaking to their needs with positioning and leverage, so you can schedule those qualified meetings. So when you get to the place where you're positioned properly, they see you as an authority, they have confidence, then you go into the sales process. And Wayne had mentioned previously Sandler. I went through 8 years of Sandler. It really gave me a foundation and helped me become very good at sales. It's with Sandler, I'm about 50% agree with what they do and 50% don't agree. One of the biggest things I agree with is clear next step. I think that's probably one of the best things that I learned from them. And there are other things there, but I really learned a lot. So that's the journey to take them from where they are to you positioned into the sales process. And in the sales process, you have to, and I'm not sure everyone's background here, so I'll just give kind of a cursory overview. It's about, first of all, qualifying them. When I take someone through a process, it's a 2-meeting process. It's qualified 20 minutes, and they're already pre-qualified because they've talked about a problem they have. They're in my target market, but they may not be a good fit for me. You don't want to bring clients into your business that aren't a good fit for you either. Here's a Chazism. I have a client, Susan, who named it that. My son told me, he goes, "Dad, that sounds like you're being egotistical." I go, "My client called it a Chazism." But here's a Chazism. It's you being you will attract the exact right prospective clients to you and repel the wrong ones. And so you can't just be yourself, right? You got to have a strategy. You have to have positioning. You have to have leverage. But when you are yourself with the right marketing strategy in the sales process, you'll onboard clients that are a good fit for you. In working with hundreds of clients over the years, I can't think of one. I'm sure there are some that it was like, oh man, this is this lousy, terrible fit. Okay. In the sales process, you qualify them in the first meeting and then go right to discovery. And that's about uncovering their problem, what it's costing them, how it's preventing them from reaching a goal or objective, and most importantly, how it affects the decision maker or decision makers personally. You should never, ever, ever present until you have that information. So that's a real high level cursory overview. Anyone have questions on that? I'd be happy to take questions, or Wayne, why don't you guide and direct this? I don't want to take control.
Yeah, well, and everybody can, if you hit the unmute button, then you can get in and ask a question. To color in just a little bit, Chaz, part of what, when I started working with you, part of what had happened was I've actually developed quite a few clients from LinkedIn cold, like meet people, talk to them, ask questions, understand who they are. Um, and I had engaged with this company sending out those messages, and I told them I was going to write all the messages, which I did, and not use their canned language because I was out of time. Like, I wanted to grow Business Builder Camp. I wanted to go find and meet new people, new business owners, but I don't have time. I didn't have time. And in the intervening time, what I've realized is I like being me on LinkedIn, and I like connecting with people and posting a little bit of personal stuff and a little bit of business stuff, and then just getting in conversations. I still for sure haven't figured out how to, and I don't know that I want to, because my world is pretty complete right now with all these people. But I know some of the folks on the call, like, Loretta is CEO of a company where she has 25 employees and would like to develop a salesperson to be able to take over the work that she does. But it's a time thing, and yet you want to be authentic. Jack is, written a couple books and has a salesperson and a top of funnel person. And there's questions like, do you have somebody else work your profile, or do they have their own? And Craig is a lot of B2C in the construction business, but then he has another consulting gig where they are looking for contractors to join a big network. But I think time sometimes is a limiting factor for everybody here. So I don't know what kind of questions everybody has, but if it's, some things along those lines, I think the events thing is interesting for some of the people here to really lean into events. But yeah, whatever you pick up on. And I like how Craig said he feels like he's met Chaz because of seeing all his posts. That when we see somebody else out there, then I want to know, like, how do they do it? So I don't know what you all want. I'm going to be quiet and let you ask questions.
Can I add to that real quick? And then please ask any questions. Let's come off of mute. Yes, events is the way to, what's the number one thing, that commodity out there? People's time and attention, and people's attention span is less than a goldfish. It's like 6 seconds, something like that. And so you need to grab their attention. And one thing I missed, and Craig was, as you're coming down this road, it's about people getting to know you, like you, trust you, and see you as an authority. I left those three out. So thank you for bringing that to my attention, because it's about you being you. And in your content, I have a lot of content that has nothing to do with sales and marketing. If you're just constantly putting out content that's sales, marketing, or whatever it is for your industry, people will just, you need to be you. Every one of you, and I'm looking at your pictures up here, Daryl, Shelby, Craig, Jack, Loretta, you all have interesting stories to tell. You may not be home. I have a client who's like, well, John, I wasn't homeless, or it doesn't matter. You need to tell your story. Your story, if you grew up in a great environment and you have this, that's going to connect with your target audience. That's going to attract the right people to you. So questions, anybody on anything, sales, marketing, mindset, all of the above?
Yeah, I have a question. Can you talk a little bit about how to do this when you have a team of salespeople? That was my question. I've been mainly producing social media content. I have a podcast, so I'm making the content, and I've been personally connecting with people, and I'm super full on my own personal calendar. So how can I kind of bring in team members without making people feel like, oh, Jack handed me off to the salesperson?
So it would have to have them early in the process. Do you want them to take over by themselves, or where in the process, or are you asking where in the process do they come into the conversation?
I'm talking about, like, let's pretend that I'm in a conversation with one of my ideal customers, and I say, hey, well, or they say, hey, tell me more. We should chat sometime.
So that's a good question. And there's some complexities in there depending upon how much knowledge they need based on who you are. I have a client who they take information with like 8 silos and put it in one place. And he has a sales rep who handles something up to a certain point, but then she brings in her boss. So she handles all the communications up to a certain point, but then when it comes to just getting down into the, the details of the business and the technology and everything, then at that point in time, she brings someone else in. So I would have people earlier in the process because, business development, and then they can hand people off to you. Do you want to remove yourself from the conversation altogether and focus on other areas of the business? Or do you still want to be engaged in your sales process?
I want to be engaged in the sense, I guess it's more of a question of, people are following me because I'm the author and podcast host. And
Sure.
how do I use my own personal profile to then bring in other people?
Right. I would have people in your profile, working your profile, because, you should be focusing on those people that want to make decisions and that have been already pre-qualified. And so I would have people in your profile that are engaging on your content, you're following up with those, and you can work together a process that's very simple. Thanks for engaging on my content. Hope to connect with you. You help them identify they're in your target market. And yeah, we show you how to do all of that. But that's how I would do it. I would have them pre-qualify them up front, because you don't need to be involved in that part of the conversation. As Wayne was saying, he didn't have time in working your profile and all these other things. I mean, it sucks the time out of your day.
So having them like logged into my own account, interacting with people instead of as their own account.
You could do both, either or, but you're the authority.
Right.
So if they're 2 books or 3 books?
Two.
Okay. So, you're the authority. They're coming to your profile. And so I would have them, obviously, so that they know what to say and how to say it and whatnot, is just get them qualified up front and get them into a meeting, to either a pre-qualified meeting. How many conversations typically do you have before you onboard a new client?
Well, one, typically we have a video that they watch where they learn that they're going to buy what we call a foot in the door offer. Some companies call that a tripwire or whatever. So they buy an audit from us, and then we create a marketing plan for them. And then so before they become a full client, probably 3 or 4 with the salesperson. But to get to the point of buying that one audit, it's usually on that first call. And they know ahead of time that we're going to ask them to buy the audit if we both agree it's a fit.
Smart. Yeah, that's the way to do it. Yeah, I would have them take them through the process and pre-qualify and lead up to the videos. So they're going to the meeting. Are you involved in that meeting when they buy?
I'm not.
Okay. They don't.
I'm involved. I make a video that they watch, a personalized video, before they meet with the salesperson.
Yeah. So as long as you know someone that knows sales and they're sold on what you do, just have them work the entire process.
Cool. Well,
That's what
thanks.
I would do. Sure. You're welcome. Anybody else?
Chaz, I have a question. So we have an event October 20th, and it's called Business Builder Blueprint. And it's basically 6 pillars of our product that we can sign members up so they get training on. And I have a disconnect between what contractors want and what they need. So you said if you could figure out what to solve their problem, and the problem is what they want and what they need are very different. Is there value in educating them in the content leading up to getting them in the funnel, or is that something you might address in the sales process? Because it's very complex to figure out how to tell somebody, contractors tell me they need more time, more leads, and more sales. And what they really need is process improvements that will give them more time, more leads, and more sales, right? And so I'm just curious, where would you tackle that conundrum? Because that's a consistent theme. We'll have a couple hundred people in attendance, but I know we're not going to be able to address that many people and educate them on what they want versus what they need. So it's a real conundrum.
Sure you can. So they're speaking about symptoms, right? And you go to the core of the problem to fix, like if you can imagine, like someone goes into a doctor's and they have I have a rash on my arm, and they're like, that's weird. So they do an X-ray, an MRI, and all these other tests. They're like, oh man, you have cancer down there. But all I know is I have an itch on the arm, right? Nice stogie, by the way. they have an itch on the arm. So it's your job to speak to the symptoms because they're not intelligent enough. I'm not talking about like IQ here, but just intelligently understanding the core issue of the problem. And none of us do, because we do today what we did yesterday. And as humans, we're good at really suppressing the emotions because we can't deal with it. Our job as salespeople, and all of us here are, is to uncover that need. So they're like, oh crap, I have cancer in my business and I need to solve it. So what I would do is on the event, I would do your origin story and take them through that so they connect emotionally, because people don't buy, they buy emotionally, they buy on emotions, they don't buy on the facts and figures. They buy based on emotion. So get them caught in with the origin story. And let's say, it's like, can you relate to this? It's like, you have this and it's taking the time out of your day and and then you take them down the road to, here's the core of your issue right here. This will take care of your time problem and all these. And this is what we do. And I would end with a real strong call to action into a meeting at the end of your event.
Yeah, that's very helpful. I hadn't even thought of actually just coming out and saying you're curing a symptom. But there's nothing wrong with saying that. So that's really helpful insight. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm just using the symptom as just, people know their symptoms and they speak to their symptoms. And so you have to communicate. And then we don't uncover the cancer in this example, the core of the problem, until you get into the sales process. So.
Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else?
So
And if
I'm a
anybody
little,
has, go ahead, Loretta.
so, okay, so you're saying your profile needs to reflect you, as does your content and so on. And the idea is to get people to help you with your profile and reaching out, and then collect hopefully a group of people that are qualified buyers, if you will, and then hold an event.
That's one way. You can
Okay,
do, I mean, if you have a piece of content and people in your target market are engaging on your content, they may go to your profile. So on LinkedIn, real cool thing about LinkedIn is you can see who visits your profile. If someone visits your profile or someone follows you, there's a pretty good reason. They saw a comment, they saw content. And so if they go to your profile, when you have a content strategy in place, that's a great way. Thanks for visiting my profile. I hope to connect. Then after you connect, many people visit my profile because they see my content. What brought you my way? Then just doing that will qualify them very quickly. Yes, I saw your content about this. And then you can go deeper. Remember, they engage, uncover a problem, then schedule a meeting.
okay.
Does that answer your question? There's
Yes.
a lot more depth into what you asked, but in this medium, at a very high level, but events are something definitely that everyone should be working towards.
And again, those
And
are
there's a way to have an event.
LinkedIn events, using the LinkedIn events feature. Chaz, working with Loretta, curious how you, Mike, so what I'm thinking about Loretta, so Loretta is the expert at addressing issues with that food manufacturers might have with labels. So they get labels that are cheap and they fall off, or they get wet and they fall off, or they don't have all the available information on the label. They don't know how to keep the supply chain going. There's, all kinds of problems in her industry. And her and her brother actually are the experts at how to solve label problems. Again, it goes back to this, Loretta's busy running a company, CEO, but now she has somebody named Maggie who is on staff, who is in her 20s and is more astute with social media. Loretta has like 260 connections on LinkedIn. And so again, there's just like, do I learn all these new things with LinkedIn, or would you recommend having a person on staff learn how to be more of a salesperson? How do you approach a more traditional company like Loretta's? Loretta's that, and I don't want to speak for you. So am I off track or am I close to what might be going through your head?
No, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I wholeheartedly believe that before you have someone in place, you should have a proven sales process and marketing strategy and know and understand that. Now, if you already have someone in place, it's not like, oh my gosh, I don't have it. I mean, I don't have this. I mean, you have to develop one. So do you have a sales process in place, Loretta, that you know and understand that's proven and that works?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
As far as people, once they're what I would determine qualified to buy from us.
Okay.
Prior
so-
to that,
And so, and this
Yeah.
is what happens to get them qualified down the road. And like in my sales process, there's 7 steps. You know, there's rapport, there's decision process, there's budget, there's all these different things. Sometimes we hear I was talking to someone the other day and they were saying, oh yeah, I do this, and I present. And I said, well, presenting is part of the sales process, but you're doing it way too early. Speaking to you as a business as a whole with 25 employees, I used to work in supply chain in a different way. And it was all about reducing the total cost of inventory while increasing production, because that's what people care about, right? In manufacturing and who I served. So what I would do, and not sure this person on your staff, is I would have her develop out her profile and have, you know, her branding there, which based on the company, which we could help with. And then her behaviors would be certain activities inbound and outbound that she would do each and every day. Or if you had he would do each and every day. So you
Okay.
can develop people so they know and understand. It's just having the right people in place that are coachable and decisively act on what they learn. You definitely can do that, because it's hard to be 25 employees and being involved in everything. I mean,
It's
do you want to be
exhausting.
involved in the marketing and sales process?
Well, my goal is to retire in a couple of years. So I mean, I really need to get this set up and launched.
Right.
Means been working on with me.
So are you familiar with the book Built to Sell?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Great book. So you need to have those, like in that book, the systems and processes in place so you can plug other people into those, and so you can focus on other areas of the business. So a couple of years, did you say you're selling the business?
We're not sure what we're doing. My partner's younger than me, so he could continue on for several more years.
Okay. So, but that's my thoughts, is just having someone who's qualified and then put them into a proven strategy and process that they could work. And if we could talk, you know, in the near future about that, if you're interested, I'd be happy to talk offline. That, anybody else? One of the things, go ahead, Daryl.
Yeah, so you talked earlier about kind of the triggers, the things we can use to create connection, right? You talked about anniversaries, you talked about birthdays, you talked about job changes. What are the other, you spend a ton of time on LinkedIn, obviously. What are the other, I guess, triggers or catalysts, for lack of a better word, that you may see either in the feed or a notification or things like that, where you say, hey, here's an opportunity to create connection with somebody, right? And lead to whatever the next step in your process may be.
Right. So that's a great question. So is everyone familiar with a psychographic search? Not psycho search, psychographic. Okay. So a psychographic search is finding people that are communicating their needs and wants. And so on LinkedIn, what do you sell, Daryl?
I'm a coach.
Coach. Okay. So what is you coach? I mean, there's like 1,000 different types of coaches.
Yeah, mostly it's always around business, right? So it's usually entrepreneurs, people leading teams.
Okay. Okay. So you could be Simon Sinek would be one, Damon John, Sarah Blankley, Gary Vaynerchuk. these are places where people that you reach, coaches, they go to their feed and they're commenting. And so I have people that will see my now there's the inbound and there, I mean, reaching out to people just by looking at the comments. And you can very easily on LinkedIn say, oh, they're my target market. They're like, yeah, great point, Gary. I need help with this. They just communicated at a symptom level, a problem that you can solve. And then I saw your comment on Gary V's post, hope to connect with you. And then after they connect, then you can seamlessly move to schedule a meeting and take. So that's when you go with a psychographic search, that would be find your influencer where your audience goes. Okay. And if you don't know how to do that, just in the search bar, put a topic and then you have all these selections. You could go to events, you can go to posts, you can go to all these different things, or you can put a hashtag. Then you can look at all the different content with that hashtag in there to find the person. So by doing that, that's a skill set that needs to be developed. And as a business owner with you doing that, that's something to learn and hand off to someone else that I definitely can help with if you're interested in learning more after this.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. That's interesting. Thanks.
Yeah.
Chaz, how many LinkedIn requests do you send a week? Do you have a goal for how many people you connect with, or do you just kind of?
I have like 30,000 followers, so I don't send a lot of connection requests. So there used to be 100-day limit. Now it's like 100 a week limit. And they've really throttled that back a lot. And so, and if you have under a 50% connection rate, you'll get this warning sign. And then if you continue to do that, you can end up in LinkedIn jail or lose your LinkedIn privileges. For my clients though, typically when they're working the process, if they're first starting out and they don't have a lot, and typically it's somewhere between 5 to 6 days a week. They go through a process of engaging on people's content and which can be handed off to a VA and then engaging. So it's not just a cold outreach. You engage on their content and then you connect on that. And that's something a VA could do. So does that make sense? So I don't have a lot of people I reach out to each week. Typically I'm connecting with people because they're following me or going to my profile. And that's where you should be. If you are consistent and have a presence on LinkedIn or anybody who works LinkedIn, you can get that. So it's not just outreach, it's outreach or inbound and outbound.
Chaz, what was the graph of your followers over time, roughly? Like was it linear or was like exponential, and how did you do that? And we got 2 minutes left, but.
Yeah. Well, if you want to grow your influence on LinkedIn quickly with content, get someone else, collaborate with someone, do a 5-minute interview. You interview them, they interview you, and share it with each other's audiences. That's a simple way to do it. Get an influencer, and I mean, it could just be someone who has a little bit more connection and say, would you like to collaborate? And I'll interview you, you interview me. Okay. To speak to your point, I went from like 20 to 25 real quick because I collaborated with Shanae Murray. Okay. She posted something, she tagged me in the post. And so it's like, I had like 5,000 new followers in 1 month. And so if you connect with an influencer, there's all sorts of different ways to collaborate with them. And I'm not talking about like mega influencers like Gary Vaynerchuk or Simon Sinek, somewhere anywhere between, 30 to 100, or even if they have more followers than you, that would be a quick way to do that. It makes sense to answer your question, Wayne?
Yeah, that's good. Collaborate with middle of the road influencers.
It's exactly right. They want this. I'll share your interview with my audience if you share mine with yours.
Maybe people on the second page of Google.
The people on the second page of Google, right? That's where they buried Jimmy Hoffa, isn't it?
Yeah, that's where he is. So Chaz, just to wrap up, so you gave me a link. There's a link in the invite, and I'll email it to everybody as well. If anybody wants to chat with Chaz further, if you would want to do a mini sales and marketing audit, I'll get you the link to his calendar. And of course, follow Chaz on LinkedIn and see what he's up to. Anything else you'd like to close with, Chaz?
Yeah, and I call that sales and marketing. I'm actually calling it a business analysis. It'll be 20 minutes. We'll have an open discussion. I'm not going to pitch you. If there's a way I can help, and if you're interested, we'll schedule a more in-depth conversation. Yeah, if you go to hashtag Go Rock This Day, all one word, you can see all of my content on LinkedIn. And if you like my content, Craig, please engage. Okay, and that's for everyone else. So I appreciate that. Yeah, and if right now isn't the right timing, reach out and connect with me, and you never know what the future holds.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Thanks for coming and asking great questions.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Wayne, Daryl,
Good
Go
stuff.
get them, everybody.
Shelby.
Thanks, Wayne.
Yeah, you're welcome. See you.
Bye-bye.